The Voiceover Doctor presents Margaritas, Mojitos and Microphones. Viva el Voiceover Doctor.
You guys are alien stand-up comics, okay? And E hates D. And you're appearing before a whole new planet of people you have just conquered. If they don't laugh, they will die.
Ah, hej! Ja, alien och dancing kronda!
Torek Flervio, vår agna tag naughty.
Jane, they saw the bed in cues, Boboji.
Natti foje på dagen hittag Fiji faglai.
Ja, snitche du, Kotsrex. Kai betjutsen är du fulia.
It's awesome. I think I almost feel like I'm watching third world TV already. It's very good. Cool. What do you think? Awesome. Nicely done. Okay.
People just don't have one note. Just because he's a big, loud, boisterous jock doesn't mean that when he's vulnerable, he stays in that same place. Everybody is a whole person, and there are a lot of different places to explore. Just because he's a loud jock does not mean that he doesn't have vulnerability or a sense of humor or fear or any of that. In fact, it might be that he has more fear than other people. He's just learned to mask it and cover it better. It's a pursuit to find and understand that if you just do the surface note, and when they give you the definition of a character or description, if you just live in that place, and you don't go any deeper, nothing happens. Nothing can happen. You just live there, and that's not fair to the character, it's not fair to the writer, it's not fair to the storytelling, and as an actor, it doesn't feel particularly yummy. And that's what I mean about failing, is you don't owe every single thing you do isn't a success, but what you get from the lack of success, the information you get from not getting it immediately is, oh, that didn't occur to me. That didn't occur to me. Why didn't it occur to you? Probably the answer usually is because you're controlling the event, is you're thinking the event. Edit that the fuck out.
My ferocious warrior companions, Deathblow and Carl, will also show no mercy and are preparing to execute all of our enemies. All except you will die. You will be spared to tell the story of our viciousness, huge size, and mercilessness. After we have killed many, there will only be a few left to tell the tale of our glory, and you may live to tell the tale that will live forever.
I gotta know who you're talking to. I gotta get that whole relationship.
Okay.
That's what's missing so far.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right, make that other person present for me,
All right.
or you're fired!
This would be the time to ask any questions that you have if you didn't cover it in the class. So, Ed, go ahead.
This one is primarily for Charlie. As an actor who has then transitioned over to casting and directing, how has that kind of aided you, and what is that like, having been an actor first and now doing a lot of casting and directing?
It's just another use of me. I don't really know how to answer that. I love being directed by good directors, or what I think are good directors. I like my game to be raised. I like somebody showing me something I didn't think or know, and somebody pointing me someplace. I like trying things on that I didn't think of, or even things on that I disagree with. So I love directing because I feel that actors have a particular language, which we talked about, which I think is an emotional language. It's not an intellectual language, and I'm a very emotional person. I guess you guessed that. And so it was a natural transition for me. Casting isn't as exciting for me, although I love finding new people, and I love coming up with ideas. It is less thrilling for me. I won't cast something that I don't direct. I don't get hired to just cast. I generally don't do that because it doesn't feel complete to me. It's okay.
That's like raising a kid and then handing them off. to somebody.
That's a good analogy. It's not, it feels very empty.
Because I feel the same way.
Yeah. So did that answer your question? I have no idea what you asked.
Sure.
I'm so sorry.
Well, it's interesting that you say, you're an emotional person, and obviously we did get a good helping of that tonight. But what I always try to convey to people is you're going into the business of emotions. And here's a guy, and over here too, these guys have been doing this for so long, and they are very, you noticed it tonight, they're very emotional people, and they react to things. They react to things immediately. And that's what they're asking you guys to do all the time. And that's what, when I'm working with people like you, that's what I'm always asking you to do, is just react and act and then react and act and react. And it's basic acting. And a lot of times people think that because I'm behind a microphone, I have to do this voice and I have to do this character and shit like that. And you learned tonight that it's not just that. It's acting, and you just happen to be in front of a stick, and it just happens to be there. But it's everything. Again, here's a guy, both of these guys, you started out in the radio and went more in that way. He started out in the theater, but they both started out in these different mediums, and they're all using the same type of thing. Okay? The same.
I think the idea of reacting is very important. I
Yeah.
think that's true. We were talking about earlier that it's a muscle that you really do develop. I think we talked about just basically that these are muscles that you really have to keep working on.
Yeah.
And you have to sort of leave the idea of analysis at the door. Emotionally analyzing is something very different than intellectually analyzing. And I do want to point out that I wear my nuts on my lap.
Where do you find, because I know animation's very competitive, and if you have an agent and they have a good animation department, it's hard to break in. Where do you cut your teeth on learning animation? You can pull commercials from like Voices123, Voices.com, you can get online. Where do you get to cut your teeth? Do you approach students that are in animation at a college, and where do you just find where are you gonna cut your teeth on this stuff?
It's acting. Where do you cut your acting chops in the absence of having a job? You continually find ways to work. The closest thing to this, in my opinion, its skill set is improv. Character creation, spontaneity, listening, reacting, staying tuned. I didn't know crap from Christmas, and I'm not sure I do now, what the hell animation was. I was not a fan of animation. I didn't give a good shit about it growing up. It was not my thing. It interested me not. I didn't think ill of it. I didn't think of it. I was a nut. My work in New York was in the theater, was commercials, were improv companies. Was whatever came my way. I didn't think that it was one thing. So it's very hard for me to think, and I might not be giving you good information, or certainly complete information, because maybe that is the way that things work now, is that it's so segmented, you have to cut your teeth somewhere. I just think if you want to be an actor in any medium, be a fine actor, whatever that is, every single medium you go to has a different skill set. When you go on a movie set, it's a different style, but it's still the truth, and it's still acting. And when you go to a commercial, it's the same, and a television set, sitcom, 1 hour format, whatever the fuck it is still acting, and it still requires the same basic skill set, plus or minus technical adjustments. Acting's acting. So that's my answer.
And Brian?
Okay, yeah, and find places that literally, I've done dialogue spots on the freeway by reacting to the commercials on the air. Just played it. They're reading the copy. I play back to that person as if they're talking to me. There are all sorts of. Just find every opportunity that you can to use your skills to interact with other characters, and you can do that all over the place. There are colleges and universities you can do projects. I had a friend who did for his graduation project. He's now a Sony animator. Before that, he was with Disney, and we did the baseball in heaven joke and he did that for his graduation project and did animation. So call colleges, offer to go work for animation students and do voices for their films. Take every opportunity that you can to use your skills and to get into the rhythms and to feel comfortable with other actors and other performers. If you don't work with a live actor, a lot of times we have to do a character that we wildline. If you're wildlining a character and you want to have interplay, there's got to be interplay somewhere. Then it's got to be in here. That even though you're doing the line and the other actor is not there when you're doing the line, that has to have some reality with you there. So you have to feel it happen. So put yourself in a position to do those things. That'll get you in that feeling where you feel comfortable and stuff comes out of you. Like the exercises we did, like the alien exercise thing, comes from nowhere. So you have to pull it out of yourself. And the more you walk around in that, the more comfortable you are. Everything's all about where you walk and feel comfortable in walking. Then that frees you up to be able to make some choices and do some things with it. So make sure that you find yourself in places where you can develop those chops, where you can feel comfortable.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
I have a real problem, many. The problem that I have with this being the analysis of how to and what to, it becomes it's necessary in order to survive and to become, but if you don't ground yourself in life and in not just doing this, I think you're making a terrible mistake. I think being a whole person and being a citizen of the world and relating to human beings and stepping outside of being an actor is an essential part to being an actor and to being a good actor. And I mean, I was making a joke before about just being, I'm so nuts now that I just, stand in a line at Home Depot and I'm already that person in front of me and I'm figuring out every element of that person's life before they got there. How did they arrive at that minute and where they're going to spend the rest of the day as? And for 45 minutes in my commute, I am digesting that information. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm saying that's the way that I do it. But I think it's important to heighten your awareness of the world. It's not just, how do I get in? It's how do you exist as an artist? And part of that, if you're living in an emotional language, is you have to relate to the world.
Right.
And you have to be empathic and compassionate, and you have to be heightened. It's another muscle, is be intuitive and start to tune in and hear and listen and all those things.
It's a 24/7 process.
It's a 24/7.
It's a 24/7 process.
I think it is.
I mean, my bread and butter is commercials most of my career. And, my own kids will tell you, I'll be sitting on the couch just watching commercials because I teach about commercials and stuff, so I have to be up on the trends and whatnot. And I'll just sit and I'll look at my kids and I go, and this is where the cynical thing comes in, I go, why do you think they think this is funny? You want me to tell you why they think this is funny? Because I don't think it's funny. But let me tell you why they think it's... And my kids are always like, Dad, shut the fuck up. We know, we get it, shut up. Their entire lives, they've had me teaching them all this shit because I'm still figuring it out too. Sure. And now, of course, my daughter's fucking teaching other people because she's heard me drill it into her fucking head.
But I think that's important what you said, and I said it before earlier. I'm still figuring it out.
I'm still figuring it out.
I don't feel any more ahead of anything.
Yeah.
At all.
Because if you think you have it figured out, then you're done.
Yeah, there's no point in going on.
Right.
If
Then you're
not
done
learning
being an
that,
actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dawes said it, I think we synthesized a lot of this. Dawes said there's no such thing as a monologue. Everything in life that you do is communication between you and somebody else. If you're doing a straight commercial, you're not doing a straight commercial.
Right.
If you're doing it right, you're talking to somebody about something, and there's a reason for the communication.
Well, that's what we were covering tonight. It's the conversation. It's the relationship. Who are you talking to? How do they feel? How do you feel about them? And they feel about you?
Whether they speak or not.
Yeah.
The Dawes moment was he did a radio serial called Young Dr. Malone. All the radio actors finished their parts and sat down, and Jeff Chandler stood there, and Dawes was a kid in a hospital bed, and Chandler didn't have a word to say. He just stood there and let Dawes talk to him and talk back to him with his eyes and his body, because there is no such thing as a monologue. We relate to each other or else we die.
That's right.
So, something I've taught over the years too is, there's a lot of teachers out there that say ignore punctuation, don't worry about punctuation. I'm the opposite. I think punctuation is very important in a script, and in my opinion, wherever you see punctuation, somebody should be reacting to you in your head. Somebody reacts to you, because in a conversation, a comma and all those things that are there, if you were having a conversation, chances are somebody was going, oh yeah, or what, or whatever. But they're reacting in some way, and that's something that they, and I've heard these guys say it to you tonight, that you need to create in your own head. You need to create that reality, otherwise, you're just reading it.
If there's
You're
nobody
just
there,
reading it.
if there's nobody there, then the audience will know that.
Can I translate that?
Otherwise, it's Judy.
That's it.
Well, yeah, you can say that. Yeah.
How do you kind of diversify your character repertoire if you're constantly relying on your instincts, which might tell you to do one thing, but you kind of want to explore a character taking in a different direction, where you might have to think a little bit more?
I like characters, and I like character voices, and for me, it's a natural thing. I riff and talk to myself in character and imagine arguments with myself, and I kind of have a dialogue with myself as I'm driving down the freeway all the time anyway. You kind of just go there.
But you're
it's fun to go
medicated
there.
now, aren't you?
I quit that.
Yeah, okay, all right.
I'm not that smart. I don't have any idea about anything with characters. I think, like Brian, I talk to myself a lot.
It's a visual.
I do satires on everybody.
Yeah.
No one is safe. When I'm in the car, I usually sing for an hour to warm up and an hour going home, but I don't sing as me often. I sing as a bad impression of them, and end up doing a satire. At a language tape, I was desperately trying to learn another language, and after 6 months, I had a flawless dialect and didn't understand one fucking word, because I caught myself in traffic on this, and I didn't get any information. So maybe there's just this monkey nature that kicks in. I don't know. I don't really think about it. I don't think about
You
it.
react.
But the thing
I guess I
the
do.
thing that's
I guess
cool
I
is
do.
That's
as
what
you
I
do,
love about you
you
guys.
love them. You these characters kind of
I
like
love
these
them.
characters. They come out of you and they become their own creatures. They become their own people. They are distinctly a part of you, but they're also separate from you. They live in their own world and have their own space.
Yeah, and you can have conversations
Oh,
as
absolutely.
them because they have different points of
Because
view.
you have a backstory
Yeah,
too.
Yeah, they have a different
Around
point of view.
stuff.
They're not just. That's why I say it's like it's not. I don't consider them voices. I know there are people in the world or in our own business who think we're carny folk, and maybe we are. They just drive better cars than our carny folk. But I really do think there is, for me, there is a great, for Brian, all of us, there's this great joy in playing. It is a thrill, and I was saying earlier, if you don't love to act, you shouldn't act. If acting is torture for you, I'm not saying you don't get scared. I have terrible stage fright, and I always have. But it's not something I can't overcome. Obviously, it hasn't worked against me. Maybe it has, and I've not known about it. But I'm scared shit a good deal of the time.
I think it works for us. I think it works. It's kind of like jumping on. It's like bungee jumping or something. There is an adrenaline rush when you face the fear and something wonderful comes out. I don't know. I listen to things that I do sometimes if it's really good, and I go, "That's not me." I disconnect. I don't think that was me because it takes a life of its own. And it's not something that I think I'm really capable of doing. It's when that part of you that has some degree of control gives yourself over to the character, and the character takes control.
Yeah,
And that's
I think it's
wonderful.
beautifully said. I think
Yes.
that's right. I try to articulate what that means. And by the way, as I say this and I hear us say this and I try to break it down, I feel like a mental hospital patient. I mean, in trying to articulate some of this, I think I'm either the biggest bag of doo-doo for trying to espouse all this stuff and even thinking I'm in a position to espouse anything, or I should be in a padded cell. Because none of this really fits in particular to anything except in the world that I understand and that I inhabit and that I, in many ways, have created for myself. I know that I know this, I knew this about myself when I was little. I could not have ever lived and or survived in a world that required me to not dance and not play and not be a monkey.
But see, I think that's why
couldn't do it.
I think that's
I'd be
why
dead.
people like you and a little bit me maybe are successful. I think that's why you're as successful as you are, you guys, because you don't do it to try to get something out of it. You do it because it is a part of you, and you must do it, and you just do what feels comfortable for you, and damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead.
Yep.
And I think that's why you guys work as much as you do, and because I've had that same experience in these things with Bob Bergen and Maurice LaMarche and Rob Paulson and Kat Sosi and Jennifer Hale, people like that. I know Jennifer Hale is in I can't think of some of the names of the other people in it, but they rent the studio out here and they just do it's a voiceover improv workout group, and they're improvising just in front of a microphone, and it's all very heady stuff. There's a lot of conversational stuff, but they're creating the characters, and they have a director come in and direct them. And now these are people who are working, making a fine living at this, and look what they do. Every week, they get together and fuck around and play. And that's why I think you become successful.
I hate to say this, but that's one of those things when I like to give away secrets that would cost me money if I were still throwing a workshop in LA and this. As you guys network with each other, why can't you do the same thing?
You can.
Get together 10 of you and do that kind of stuff and work out, and it costs you nothing, and you grow together and you develop voice friends and stuff that like we.
Yeah, you go out and buy Viola Spolin's book, Improvisation for the Theater, and it's got a whole bunch of games in there, and all those games are what these guys have been teaching you today. It's just all character development, and not character development to be funny and to be cute and to be witty. It's character development to be honest. It's an honesty exercise, guys.
Yeah.
And anybody who's worked with me, you always hear me say, look, you got to be comfortable and just be who you are, and maybe you'll get the job. If you get the job, great. If you don't, at least you walk out of there going, fuck, that was great. I did a good job.
Yeah, and there's this thing that happens to you that most of the reason I was shaking in front of Ginny is because I didn't want to screw up, and consequently, early on in the career, it took me a long time to get the idea that you need to have the freedom to do the character and be lousy. That's why you work out with each other, so that you can go ahead and do those things where you struggle and you fall on your face, because those chances are what create the things that give you the confidence to go out and take the chances that make for brilliant performances.
Embrace the failure.
Yeah. The failure is the best thing in the world.
Serious.
Was that like a 25 fucking minute answer?
The best 25
How do I get to Magnolia Will? When I
You
was
see that
4.
church down there? Don't go to the church. Charlie Adler, Brian Cummings.